have a choice here living in District 3 between Stephen Romero and Alonzo Lobato. Those are the two choices on this ballot here. And then actually the ballot, I think, is mistaken because it has two, like District 1 and District 3 for me to vote in. And so I think if I voted in both of the, if I voted, this one and that one, this might invalidate my whole ballot. So I have to get, something. Somebody needs to tell me, what the hell is going on when it comes to that. So if you're listening and you know any better. But Stephen Romero, Alonzo Lobato. Stephen Romero has been in there for a year. I think they both lifelong Costilla Countyans. So they're both local folks, lifelong Costilla Countyans. Stephen Romero, Alonzo Lobato. Stephen Romero is, I don't know what he was before he was the county commissioner. He's been in there for 1 year, taking over from somebody. Alonzo Lobato apparently is part of the roads department or works at the biodiesel plant, which we got a biodiesel. Is that an enterprise, the biodiesel plant? But if right now, let's see, not my understanding. This is Alonzo Lobato works for Stephen Romero through, the rungs of government. Somehow, Alonzo Lobato is actually below Stephen Romero. Stephen Romero can fire Alonzo Lobato if he wants to. So I talked to both of them today. Today is 1:45 p.m., Thursday, June 25th, 2020, and I just took a bunch of notes, and actually this is just my first initial impressions, and I actually want to do a follow-up with Alonzo Lobato, and but first I want to talk about Hickenlooper, okay? So I just want to, I'm a progressive, so this gives you a sense of where I stand on, policies and issues and what have you. So between John Hickenlooper, the stinking pooper, you got him, and you got the other guy who's way better, Andrew Romanoff, right? Andrew Romanoff, he's, the American Gorbachev. So he's super progressive, super communist, super left-wing, just out of control, just absolute radical. What's fundamental change in America? Well, what an American, right? So Andrew Romanoff is better on John Hickenlooper on every one of these issues. John Hickenlooper is wrong on Social Security. He's going to decrease those. He's going to stop your Social Security from. He's wrong when it comes to health care. Just the public option, not universal. He's wrong when it comes to the Green New Deal. How are we going to stop all this environmental? Wrong when it comes to marijuana. This is Mr. Colorado. He was the governor when Colorado legalized marijuana. And yet, fucking stinking pooper is going to be wrong when it comes to marijuana? Motherfucking John Hickenlooper. What the fuck is wrong with you, John Hickenlooper? He's wrong when it comes to the Electoral College. He's wrong when it comes to ICE, not just reform. We need to abolish. What about what happened to George Floyd? He thought he got shot. He had his knee on the thing. 8 minutes? Where are you at? What planet are you on, John Hickenlooper? John Hickenlooper was wrong on reparations and fracking and police reform. He says, yeah, reform somewhat here and there, but he's just not. He don't want to defund the police. He's not for demilitarizing the police. He don't even know what happened to George Floyd. So, my fucking God, he's wrong on Social Security, wrong on health care, wrong on the Electoral College, wrong on Green New Deal, wrong on George Floyd, wrong on ICE, wrong on reparations, wrong on fracking, wrong on police reform, and wrong on marijuana. What an embarrassment to Colorado. We're going to have elected goddamn senator who's opposed to fucking marijuana. Isn't Cory Gardner? Don't even tell me that Cory Gardner is for the legalization of marijuana and John Hickenlooper is to the right of the Republican that we're trying to topple. John Hickenlooper, I think, is the only person in the universe who could lose to Cory Gardner. Any generic Democrat could beat Cory Gardner. John Hickenlooper is, he's out of touch. He gasps all the time. And really, it's his privilege. This privilege is the only reason he's ever, he was governor and he was rich, and so people took him serious. But he is not Mr. Razzle-Dazzle. He's not exciting. He has no progressive ideas. He's wrong on these ideas. He's running to the right of all these ideas. And it's super sad here in Colorado because Colorado, we all got two senators, right? But Colorado's two senators are both right-wing pieces of shit. We got Michael Bennet, right? The whole country got to see this neoliberal Democrat. Oh, good job, Michael Bennet and John Hickenlooper. Y'all fucking stop Bernie Sanders, right? So we got Michael Bennet. He's one of the senators, and Cory Gardner. And I think he might be pro-legalization of marijuana Republican. I think. I want to check that, but that's, oh my fucking God. I know that he's, whenever there's a quote about marijuana, they always look to Cory Gardner. I know he's been a resilient fighter for the legalization of marijuana here in this state. Is Hickenlooper going to undo it? Is Hickenlooper going to be okay with sending federal troops into Colorado to stop the legalization of marijuana? Does he feel bad that this is something he was opposed to, but he was the governor, so he just, did what he had to do. So, yeah, with Hickenlooper, he's a neoliberal on Social Security, health care, Green New Deal, marijuana, reparations, fracking, police reform, ICE, Electoral College, George Floyd, defunding, demilitarizing the police. He's just wrong. He's wrong on every single one of those things. So, fuck you, John Hickenlooper. You suck when it comes to policies. You would just be barely better than a Hickenlooper if you're better at all. You're not improving much jack shit. You're going to overturn you're going to make the Democrats look fucking, what the fuck? You're going to just do the same shit? We don't want a Republican as a Democrat. We want a Democrat and only a progressive is a honest, true blue person. That's the only kind of Democrat I'm going to vote for. So I'm not going to vote for any of these fucking stinking poopers. I'm only going to vote for progressives. Okay, so between Alonzo Lobato and Stephen Romero, Alonzo Lobato was open to listening to my economic ideas. So is Stephen Romero. He gave me his email address, which I guess is the easiest way. Alonzo seems like a long shot candidate, but he was decent enough to pick up his phone and talk to a random constituent. I had about a 20-minute conversation with Alonzo Joseph Lobato, and about 1 hour, I think, with Steve Romero back to back. It was awesome. It was quite amazing. Then I just wrote a bunch of notes, and I still want to think about it, but I do feel like I'm leaning one way more than the other. So Steve, he says that he's educated and he's well-spoken, whereas Alonzo is not. Now, Steve says he knows what's going on. He's only been in office for a single year, so he's not really the establishment, but he knows what's going on because he's educated. He went to college because he's been around this ruling class for such a long time. But he's saying he knows what's up. He's educated. He's well-spoken. He could do the damn job. Whereas Alonzo, man, what can Alonzo do, right? So he's actually going straight for Alonzo's intelligence. I'm not saying that he's dumb or anything like that, but he's saying I'm educated, college educated, and therefore you are not. You don't really know what's happening. Now, I have some issues with that. It's elitist and snobby. The truth requires no schooling, and even education is hurt by schooling. What's schooling ever done here in, Costilla County for the persistently poor? 1 out of 4 people here in Costilla County are poor and desperate. So you have what? Just a school is a class of outside oppressors who steal the power and money away from the locals. We should spread the wealth. We should have jobs for everybody. I hope the school is employing the people that they're educating. If you can't even educate your own children to be the teachers and superintendents of the schools, then you're not really doing much teaching whatsoever. So that's okay. So Steve, I don't believe that, Alonzo is just a dumb shit and don't know anything about this. So I kind of, that sort of makes me go away from Steve a little bit at first. But I think in the long run, I'm going to need to know that both Steve and Alonzo are qualified. How do I know that you two could do the job? All you got to do is sit there and vote. You got to sit there and vote, raise your hand, come up with initiatives, ideas, balance the budget. So it's not like the skills itself is, all you got to do is know the system and be a good person who wants to do what's best for the county, what's best for the people. And so you got to have good intentions, and you got to give a shit about the people. I think a corrupt person only cares about friends and family. And while you need to care about friends and family, you also got to care about the people. The people. You got to care about the people. So in a democracy, the people are sacred. Now, just because, he's saying that he's not as spoken, that doesn't mean nothing to me. I think if they're both qualified, I need to know that they're qualified. I need to know that they're good people. It's actually very tough when you say, who's going to do a better job? You stand Steve Romero in there, what kind of job is he going to do, right? If you're brilliant and, good, that's fantastic. If you're brilliant and corrupt, well, that's not doing anybody any good. And if you're good and, not brilliant, but, competent and rational, and you can do some good, I would rather have incremental good than, any bad. So the idea, on its face, I just feel like all I need to know is that you're qualified, you're competent, and that that you care, that that you give a shit, that you give a damn about, us, we, the little people. So, off the bat, I didn't like that attack, but it does say, okay, I do need to think, whether or not you do know how to do the job. There is a lot of, I don't know. I think that both of them probably are getting, they both need to learn on the job. So I think neither one of them really knows what they're doing. And so both of them would gain experience by sitting in the chair. But I feel like if you had that vision, if you had that idea before you go in, okay, I'm going to make Costilla County a wonderful Garden of Eden, a paradise. It'd be like Andy Griffith, the Andy Griffith show. And, it'd be like the mountain, the Big Rock Candy Mountain. Just everything is just perfect and wonderful and la-di-da. So so more on policies. I asked both of them two main questions. What are they going to do about the crime and what are they going to do about poverty? A lot of desperate people here. Poor people get desperate. And then there's drug users, which what Steve was all about. Was the drug users. And so that's not, I disagreed with them on that. It's not that they do drugs. It's the crime that's, affiliated with them. So Steve doesn't believe that Alonzo's intentions are any good. And so that's, it's one thing to buck your boss because Alonzo works for Steve, and I've seen this phenomenon happen, a couple times. It's not like it happens all the time, but it happens enough that it's not like, I'm not shocked by it. So Alonzo says that Steve doesn't attend all the county commissioner meetings. He says that Steve doesn't do a good job. And he's been very bad so far. So he's been in there for a year or two. Alonzo says Steve doesn't ever go out. He doesn't go out and about to the rest of the county to really see the people, his constituency. So whereas Steve doesn't think that Alonzo's intentions are any good, because Steve believes that Alonzo is bitter and he's revengeful because Steve had made him live up to he works at a biodiesel plant, and they had to listen to some standards, and he said that the plant was going to close down or else they had to succeed in getting the standards and, making biodiesel. So they had to do both. So they're in basically a tough corner, and so Steve gave Alonzo some pressure to make sure that he lives up to the standards. They've lived up to the standards, and everything seems to be fine and dandy now. But that's why Steve thinks that Alonzo is bitter and mad, and that's why he's running against him. He also said that Alonzo has another job, a UPS job, which indicates that he's probably going to fire him. Why wouldn't you just fire him now? You're allowed to fire him now. You can fire him later. And to say that it's political, yeah, I mean, it is political, but the idea that, your own guy is running against you, I don't know. You could do it now, you could do it later, but it would just seem like it'd be a lot of weird tension up until Election Day, I guess, for the next 5 days, but, for a month or two. So Steve says that Alonzo will be fine when he's, when he's probably fired because he has a UPS job. And he also, Alonzo said that there was, Alonzo Lobato said that it's a $60,000 job, the county commissioner is. So I think just by having somebody there, he's bringing up a lot of questions, right? Are they both qualified? Do they have a vision? Do they have, the chutzpah to, lead and to make sure their will is supreme, to make sure that they get what they want and to make sure that it's progressive and good and helps everybody in the... So, yeah, that's an interesting dynamic, right? Alonzo Lobato works for Steve Romero. Steve Romero doesn't own the H&H market on Main Street. His parents do. That's better. I wonder, I thought that it was him, and I didn't like that because that's a conflict of interest. I wonder if Steve does actually own any private businesses. I hope not, because it's a conflict of interest. On one hand, you're going to make a shit ton of as much money as possible, and on the other hand, you're going to do what's best for Costilla County. Just do what's best for Costilla County. Don't worry about making a shit ton of money, right? Even Donald Trump divested his businesses to his kids. Alonzo did say something. He said that Steve uses the county truck for his own private use on his ranch. So, if that's true, that's not good. You shouldn't be using county stuff or, stuff on the ranch. So I like that, he doesn't own that grocery store because we all need a grocery store. We all need a grocery store to eat. So I hope they're not price gouging, like $10, for a pound of hamburger and $5 for a gallon. I hope they're not price gouging. There's not too many groceries. I guess there's a Family Dollar or a dollar store that they got to compete with up the road. So his parents own that, so that's good that he doesn't own that private business. I don't know if he owns any other private businesses. Alonzo, since he is part of the biodiesel plant or the road department, I think in Mesita, he's an insider in some respects. He knows something about, some rung of government. He has a perspective on, so he knows something about something. So I would say that Alonzo's not a dummy. He's not a dummy. But I do need to know what he understands about, executive branch and government and, budget. His general notion, I think anybody can sort of weigh out ideas. So he said we need an aggressive team of grant writers. He said we don't have any grant writers here in the county. And Steve said that he wrote some of the grants and that there was somebody else that wrote a grant, but he didn't really seem to say that there was one or two. I don't know. I didn't hear the explanation. My mind was actually wandering off when he was talking about that. But that's a good idea. So, therefore, Alonzo Lobato recognizes a good idea when he sees it. And that's, you need that too. So, Steve Romero needs to recognize a good idea when he sees it. So I think it's good that, this race, I'm going to do a follow-up and I'm going to, do this more sharply, who's this and who's that. But just, off the bat, I guess, I'm leaning towards Steve Romero because I think, because I know he's qualified and that he could do the job, then it's like, okay, well, then we probably could get farther with Steve Romero. But we don't know that, for sure. We don't know that okay, you're smarter, you're more brilliant, college, you've done the job for a year, so you know how to vote bills and this and budget that and what have you. But those things aren't too hard. Anybody can learn those things. And I need more than just that your experience. So, the reason why I'm leaning towards Steve is because he does seem thoughtful. And they both indicated they would listen to my economic stimulus ideas. I asked them both about crime. Steve did say, we probably should patrol, the Lobato Bridge. We probably should send, all of our county services out to the, the entire county of Costilla County. So he was talking about budget and money, and Alonzo said that too, but Alonzo also said that there's no jail space. So the reason why there's crime in this county is because there's no jail space. We have to rent jail. If there's more than 15, it's already overflowing, so they don't arrest everybody that they need to arrest unless it's a capital heinous thing. And then they're, have to rent from some neighboring jail. So it's costing us more money, and it's not allowing the police to, fully be the fascist, tyrannical oppressors that we all know and love. So Steve doesn't believe that Alonzo's intentions are any good. Alonzo works for Steve because he thinks that this is just payback. This has nothing to do with what's best for the county. You made me do this biodiesel right, and now I'm pissed off. Alonzo said he wanted to work on paving roads, I think, or was that Steve? Maybe it was both of them. I think Alonzo said he wanted to work on this is why I got to review some of this stuff. So that's good, policy stuff. What are they going to do policy-wise? Are they going to pave these roads? I would vote for the person that paves County G Road and Seminole Road. So County G is like more of the main vein, but Seminole Road would be that'd be nice too. So yeah. What am I saying here? I was saying that I was leaning towards Steve because he seems like he's qualified, and I know that he's qualified. And then with Alonzo, even though I think it's a terrible attack, in the back of my mind, I'm like, well, shit. Is he a dum-dum? Does he not know what the hell is going on? And so I feel like I need to just talk to him again. And ultimately, because I understand politics, I know that it doesn't take, this skill and that skill. But you do need to sort of have a worldview and overall understanding of the thing. And then how you're going to get your, initiative. How you're going to get what you want accomplished done. How you're going to do that. Alonzo said a lot of things. He says that basically the people around here take the same jobs every year. The same people take the same jobs every year, every election cycle, no matter what. So I wonder if that has to do with, the caucuses, which I became a Democrat to see the caucus, but apparently there's a lady in Garcia that didn't want me to go, so she didn't tell me to. So I bet that caucus is that's where all the who's going to be. Oh, yeah, you don't do politics, but then you're going to go ahead and make sure I'm iced out of the meeting, right? Or I don't do politics. That means you're the most political one out here. That's why there's, a perpetual government class. Is what Alonzo is saying. There's a perpetual government class here in Costilla County, and that's what brought down the Manchu over in China. They had a perpetual government class. They just got fatter and fatter and fatter and wasn't doing nothing for nobody, and then eventually it's like, how can something like that, that's like just a big old fat thing on like a stick of, like, a thin little stick. So, yeah, Alonzo is going to spread the wealth, the jobs to everybody, not just a select few. He did say that, that's a kind of smart answer about the police. We don't have enough money, which is the exact same thing that Steve said. They didn't have enough money to, patrol the whole county. And neither one of them had really a good answer regarding economic stimulus or what they're going to do about poverty. So I feel like I kind of probably broadsided both of them. What are you going to do about crime? What are you going to do about poverty? So since they're both open to listening to my economic stimulus ideas, I'm okay with both of them on that front. And I think which one would be more receptive? They'd probably be equally receptive, right, for maybe the opposite reasons. And, I think I could probably get a little farther with Steve. But, like I said, it was, okay, so, I already talked about that. I'm with Steve, for right now. I do need to follow up, maybe, I might be just a human thing, right? Because I talked to Alonzo first, and then I talked to Steve second. So since I talked to Alonzo first, then I liked Alonzo as I was talking to him. Then I liked Steve as I was talking to him. But Steve talked to me longer, so even though I was like more in a, questioning mood in the beginning, by the end I was like, Steve sounds like a good guy. So eventually, I guess Steve wore me down over the long run. So even if it was like, oh man, I can't believe what he said, you're not well spoken. So the only problem, I'm going to lean towards Steve right now with a caveat, with a major reservation. He seems to think that you can only increase revenue, government revenue, by increasing taxes. And whereas perhaps a penny tax could do, this county wonders, I disagree that you can't just, you could do more than just raising, you could sell goddamn cookies on the, you could start a farmer's market and charge $10 rent. There's things that you could do. I think Pueblo owns a public golf course. So does Boone County. So how can governments own golf courses, but they're not allowed? I think, what about the recreation center? And then what about the biodiesel plant? That sounds like an enterprise to me. So I bet you there's probably a one or two enterprises that the county already owns. But I feel like that's a fantastic idea because I definitely respect the man that can make business work. For business to work, you got to offer a service or a product that people want. And so therefore, you got to make the people happy. In some respects, it's more democratic than, democratic government. So with business, I respect if a person says, hey, I'm going to hire 10 more police officers, and I'm going to do it with the revenue that I get from the farmer market stands or, farmer markets I establish. charge, $10 rent for the week or some real cheap thing, but basically makes centralized farmers markets all over the place. So I don't see why that's good for government, good for private enterprise, gives a person a center, a marketplace to sell their goods and services. And so the idea of having some business, some essential business, maybe essential, maybe not, maybe own a marijuana store to prevent prevent gouging by a gas station. But I think you can buy some enterprise, and if this, with his perspective, laissez-faire purist, he's saying that it can't compete with private, so therefore they cannot buy any private, but that's not 100% true, because if we don't have a golf course, if we don't have, a water park, if we don't have a roller coaster, if we don't have a movie theater, if we don't have, we got a rec center, if we don't have, I don't know, if there's a tire shop or a bank, which I think we have both of those. I think we got a bank. I'm not sure about a tire shop. But if there's an industry that would be essential to the people that private industry hasn't picked up, I would think that that's fair game. We can have a golf course. The county can own a golf course because there's no other private enterprises that would compete with it. So they're not competing with private, any kind of other company or business that wants to do it. So I think that means, a golf course would be open. I don't think that's a good idea. I think it'd be kind of ludicrous. I don't really like the idea of golf course. So much land for fucking golf. It seems just, you could have 20 basketball courts. That's way better. I'd rather see 20 basketball courts than one golf course. But my point is, I think it's possible for the government to own an enterprise, assuming they don't already own an enterprise. So Steve did say he'd never raised property taxes. That's awesome. He tried to get a 1-cent sales tax passed last election cycle to get the police some funding, but it failed. EMS passed. So if the people liked the police did a better job, they would get more money, then they would get, the funding that they... So maybe everybody should do better, right? Just do better. But EMS, it passed, right? So if people like you, you'll get the money. Alonzo sounds like an honest, genuine guy. It takes courage to run against your boss, to be your boss's opponent in an election, but this is democracy. This is how democracies work. And so, I don't hate that, and I don't think he should be fired for just that alone. Let's see here. In my education, I got my own education through just my own reading and my own experiences. I'm college educated, quote unquote. And that gives me the illusion of being educated, which I guess I am, but I don't give college that credit. College taught me rote memorization very, very well, how to cram the night before, how to make sure that my MLA references are consistent. Who gives a shit? I can write a Wikipedia page. Most of them bastards can't. So they make sure my references, make sure they're consistent with each other. A big part of me thinks that the only point to college is so that in the professional world, we all could say, oh, he or she's one of us. But that they're in the club. They're one of us nerdy nerds. They knew what it was like to cram, to read. They've looked at the big picture. So you graduated college, it doesn't matter. Oh, and communications, doesn't matter. You went through it, you studied, you can learn things, and you accomplished a goal. So those are, kind of some bigger things of what people say about college. But it's not that the knowledge itself leads to better worldview, better knowledge, or even money. A person can go to college and be as dumb as shit. A person cannot go to school and be an Einstein. So I think it's important for Steve to not look down on others. He was, thoughtful, speaking with me, and I see the people as sacred in a democracy, so I hope that Steve sees the people as being sacred in a democracy. Sure, he gets the decision, but he has to hear people out, so I think he's doing his job as a representative by listening to people. I also hope that Steve can think of a better way of financing government instead of just raising taxes, especially sales tax, because sales tax is a regressive tax, which means it's a tax on working class people. So that's awful. We don't need to tax working class people too much. What, the sales tax is already at 8% or some shit? It's too much. It's terrible for business, awful for working class. Let's keep, a low sales tax. Let's keep our sales tax as low as possible. and yeah, maybe pass a quarter of a cent or a tenth of a cent tax. Pueblo had a tough time just passing a tenth of a cent or a fourth of a cent, and they're asking for a whole penny, and they thought, well, it's just a penny. If they asked for a fraction